Chapter 3. Guthrie, under attack. Guthrie had turned just as he had seen Brooke descend into the abyss. He growled at Wendy to plunge into the abyss and try to retrieve Brooke. Wendy was just one portion of the wind that Guthrie had jurisdiction over. He had not yet learnt to amass or harness enough control or power to command all the winds of the Alaysia, or beyond yet. There was a pit in his stomach. Guthrie knew the absence was going to cost him in the near-distant future. This would take decades of learning to master such a thing, was Guthrie's growling thought. Guthrie's head spun around as he felt a quick-moving gust of air against his ear, and his gaze was torn from the abyss. His eyes darted to his left before looking forward. Stuck in a tree 20 meters before him was an arrow sticking out of a tree. The assailed turned his attention to finding the direction of the shooter. Guthrie tensed a little. His grim prediction had proved correct. He knew he wasn't shielded anymore by Wendy, who had descended into the vortex after Brooke a little while earlier. Guthrie ducked as low as he could. That was all that he could think to do. As quick as anything, the arrows flew sporadically, without rhyme or reason regarding their direction. Brooke was who knows where. Wendy was with her, and everyone else was still on foot, and they would not be concerned with where he was because time had not lapsed enough for anyone to wonder about him. His eyes kept scanning the surroundings. He was well and truly on his own. The tingling weakness in his leg muscles was subsiding. He felt his legs gain some resolve. "Where was that, dude?" Guthrie controlled his own breathing and quietened himself down to listen for unusual rhythms and sounds from any movement. It was quiet around him, almost too quiet. The quiet stillness was broken by a whooshing sound. "Whoa!" Another arrow flew past his ear, this time from behind him, and he felt the cold metal of the arrow as it shot by, this time from behind. Guthrie could only assume that there was more than one shooter. The only thought that ran through his mind was that these shooters were more interested in taunting him than killing him, and to what end? It also occurred to him in this one single moment of pristine clarity that the whirring of the vortex had ceased. He didn't like this one bit. The vortex had appeared and disappeared almost without notice. In fact, the ground looked as green and lush as always. There was not a leaf or plant out of place, and no sign of windy dishevelment or scorching of leaf or earth. A shiver of coldness ran over the lad, and goosebumps rose for a moment over his arms. Though he took little to no notice of this, he was more occupied with finding a safe route out. Maybe if he climbed a tree, it would give him a great visual advantage. It would make him vulnerable to attack, though. Squatting quietly, Guthrie hadn't seen or felt an arrow fly by him for quite a few moments now. Feeling like he might be able to make a dash for it came with hesitation. He wasn't sure quite where to make a dash to. A brief moment of solace came with the realization that he knew which direction his team was moving in. Goosebumps appeared on his arms again, and hairs on the nape of his neck stood to attention as a sense of coldness came upon him, again. The chill that grew in the air so subtly as to have been barely noticeable previously was now growing. Everything about him looked the same brightness from the sunshine. The same vibrancy, and all the surrounding foliage were still full of eminence. It was just this damn chill, everywhere. All he could do was survey his surroundings, keeping one eye out for the shooter, who had remained with a peculiar quietness. Could the shooter have buggered off altogether? He probs just was messin' with me. The lack of a shooter was not the only thing on Guthrie's mind. His senses told him that he may be encountering a new threat, and to his own mind, he was probably amid another threat that was causing a chillness to be in the air around him, despite the perfect eminence of his surroundings. Again, he shivered. This time the goosebumps on his arms and his neck were not subsiding, and he felt his arm muscles tense as a protection from the temperature dropped in the atmosphere once more. Guthrie then spotted quite a distance away what looked to be a low-lying mass. He first thought it to be mist forming inches from the ground. It was quickly determined by Guthrie not to be so, as it seemed to be a very large and very dark mass. It looked to be progressing at a great speed, and in his direction. Guthrie's focus was on nothing else but the black mass that was slowly and steadily heading closer and closer. He could not quite make out what it was as the substance inched toward him. Guthrie had turned, just as he had seen Brooke descend into the abyss.